Now I'm gonna share with you something really traditional and something that anyone can do. Okay, so it's a staple in our culture. It's part of also one of the most significant ways of finish a meal. Or this is something that you eat before you go to bed when you go out partying. Okay, it's churros with chocolate sauce. Churros con chocolate. I'm going to show you how to make the sauce first, it's a very simple recipe. Okay, so we're using same quantities of cream and condensed milk, which we're going to bring it to the boil. So many different of chocolate sauce recipes. I mean, I think that one, because of the condensed milk, has a lot of, it will help to, once we add the churros into it, to coat the churros very nicely. It's nice and thick. So basically we bring in the condensed milk and the cream, all the milk, to the boil. And you do same quantities, okay? 50-50. You need to be careful if you do that over an open flame. The pot tends to stick to the bottom. So the condensed milk, you need to be very careful. Otherwise, you'll ruin the sauce fairly quickly. We're using some chocolate on the side, dark chocolate couverture. And the quantities, again, you just stop when you think you have enough. All right? I use dark chocolate, but it just depends on the flavor of the sauce that you want. You want to have it more intense, stronger. You use a stronger content of cocoa powder. You see it's changing the color already. It's thickening already very nicely. And also, if you want, you can flavor that chocolate sauce as well with orange, mint, cinnamon, cardamom seeds. It's just remember one thing, that in cooking, apart from, I would say, maybe 15 or 20 chefs around the world that they pushing the boundaries, everything else is done. I mean, it's all about you growing up as a professional and getting exposed to different chefs, different cultures, or different types of restaurants and cuisines. And then one day you become your own thing. You have your own identity. So that's the most important thing. And that's what I was saying, that you have to be free. You have to be willing to absorb as much knowledge as you can. So it's very important that write it down, everything, because when you're young, you tend to forget things very easily. You need to train your brain in how to accumulate the information that you're learning. So that applies when you go and work somewhere else. I could show you, I've got like 6 or 7 different cookbooks that I create my own self, because every restaurant that I work, or every chef that I work with, has his own repertoire. So I write it down, every single recipe. And then, even today, there are days where I go back to those recipe books that I've got, that I collect, and that I written over the years of my apprenticeship in my career, and they're an inspiration to me, sometimes more than just buying a new cookbook. So I don't think I'm going to add any more chocolate. I think that it's thick enough. It's lovely. All right. And then we're going to leave it on the side on the same pot. So we're going to leave it here, and we're going to start making now the churro mix. All right. Again, this churro mix, it's a very simple choux pastry base. So we basically combining on a pot the water, the butter, a little bit of vanilla essence, and a little bit of orange zest. Of course, the more orange zest you put it in, the more flavor of the orange you're going to have. I like to use blood oranges as well when they're available. They have a much deeper and nicer flavor. So basically, we're going to combine all these ingredients and we're going to bring them to the boil. This is a fun recipe that you can do with your younger siblings at home, with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, or for your parents, you can do that. You know, it doesn't take long. That's it. As you can see, it's boiling very nicely. And now I'm adding the flour. And with the help of a wooden spoon, I'm working the flour until I have a nice consistency. I'm going to cook it just a little bit. I want to create an homogeneous dough. And of course, I want the orange zest also to release the flavor. All right? See, nice. I remember when I was an apprentice, when I was 17, 18 years old, we didn't have the KitchenAids, the facilities that we have nowadays with the RoboCubes and all the rest of it, and we used to do that by hand, adding the eggs. And you can see it's already lovely consistency. Cooking it a little bit more, but not too much. See, it's all coming together nicely. Smells nicely and citrusy as well. And I'm gonna add that into our KitchenAid. You want to make sure that you do that exercise always when it's nice and hot, okay? You cannot just do that and go and do another task in the kitchen. It's very important that you start and you finish it. Now I'm going to start working the dough. Working the flour, making sure it's nice and elastic. And I'm going to add the eggs, but instead of adding the eggs straight into my mixer, I do one by one on the side just to make sure that there is no shells or the eggs are nice and healthy and fresh. It's all coming together. Again, I'm putting all my senses towards that. You can see that you know, the dough is coming together, but the noise as well of the dough attaching into the pot, into the bowl. Then of course you can flavor that dough as well with any spices that you like to, you know. It's really up to you what you want to do. It's already flavored with the orange. You can put some orange juice as well inside. And my fourth and last egg. I add a pinch of salt as well. And I just mix it well, just to make sure that all the dough is well mixed. I think it is already. Yeah, I'm not going to touch it anymore. See, while the dough is still warm, it's much easier to work with. Mix the dough. And now, basically we're going to pipe the dough into a disposable piping bag. I'm going to give you a tip. Well, it's not a tip, it's just a recommendation. Usually we put the nozzles inside, but because the dough is quite firm and this is plastic, if we put, and because it's hot, if we put the nozzle inside, sometimes it tends to break, and then you need to start again. So we're going to save the nozzle for later, and I'll show you what to do. I recommend you as well, you don't put too much into it, so that way you don't have to put too much pressure. The less you put, the better it is to work with. See, you could put the whole thing, but if you don't have practice, you tend to, you know, because it's warm and we're dealing with plastic, it can break. So what I'll do now is basically like cut an incision to the top of the piping bag. And this is important that you always have to be under control. So you want to put your piping bag in a manner that it's nice, safe, and you're going to keep all the dough pushing down towards the end, okay? So you see, you roll it a little bit. I'm going to show you that again, okay? So it's very simple. You roll it, and you put the piping bag. That's it. Just like that. And your nozzle, you put it there. Okay? That's it. If you put it inside, being plastic, it's going to melt. And you're not going to be able to pipe all this churro mix. Okay? So now, we're going to go and cook our lovely churros. It's very simple. I put the nozzle, and then now I'm just putting a lot of pressure. And then you create the shape that you want to do, or the length that you want to, okay, with the churros. And let's say we have a clear sunflower or vegetable oil. I recommend you to use a quite neutral oil without any flavors, okay? It's going to be cheaper, and you don't need to do it with olive oil or peanut oil, or, you know what I mean? It's just, as long as your oil is nice and hot, and also clean, like this one, okay? See, I show you again, it's so simple. You don't have to put the nozzle inside, right? another one. Okay, because as I said to you before, using a warm dough, your piping bag, they tend to expand, all right? And even though that this is probably one of the best piping bags that you can get, you know, sometimes you make a big mess. Lovely. Now, it's very important when you remove them from the oil, you want to absorb all the excess fat of it, okay? So look, that's what you do. They look like an original churro to me. And now, the important thing is to add the sugar, the cinnamon, or the spices that you want to use straight away. Otherwise, you want the sugar to coat into the churro itself, right? So important. Bit more sugar. I'm not going to put any more cinnamon. I think it's enough. So basically, what I'm doing now, I still have my sauce nice and warm. Look at that. Look at that. I'm just adding my churros. And that's it. Okay, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you to Ice. Thank you to Alison and her staff. I'll see you on the other side. Adios, amigos. Hasta la vista.